their council, per this gentleman that works for the city, was pushing for a duplex and a triplex. But then after comparing what a quadruplex is by way of the international code body, and can you provide me the name of that body? International
IBC, International Building Code.
International Building Code, thank you. Yeah.
International Building Property Management Code, there's two different ones. Whichever one to state, I think it's the International Building and Property Management Code.
Right.
Is that right, Lee?
Yes, sir.
There's also International Fire Code.
Yeah, that's an FPA 101, Life Safety Code.
So the buildings,
Occupancy.
IPMC, yep.
the buildings will be inspected every 5 years on a 5-year rotation?
It's just saying they have a 5-year window, that you would let them, give them a 5-year window up front.
But it would be, after that, it would be into a 5-year rotation.
Oh, 5-year rotation.
So,
My only issue is the same thing Alan said, is we are targeting a certain demographic of people or a certain type of landlord, not others. I mean, I can be a slumlord and rent single-family homes, and I'm not subject to the same scrutiny. I also think it has a lot to do with the tenants. If the tenant is not complaining, different people have different standards for quality of life. And I don't think it's fair to impose my standard upon someone else if it's not encroaching on my day-to-day living.
I mean, we can look at things, but we have to have calls to do it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. I mean, if the fire department goes out on a call and they see an unsafe situation, then that pulls the trigger for us to be able to go.
and so for Frank, sorry to interrupt.
No.
I think frankly in this case is you set up the framework of providing an occupational tax license to a leasing office that might not have an occupational tax license to begin with. So you set up the framework to allow that tax license to be revoked by way of them not keeping up their property both internally and externally.
But the occupational tax, if I'm Allen Home and Landlord LLC, I only have to have an occupational tax permit by state law if again, the lawyers are here, in the jurisdiction where I do business, my main jurisdiction.
You only need one occupational tax, and then that's transferable amongst other jurisdictions. What you're speaking of, Councilman, is regulatory, and the regulatory, the occupational tax is a tax. It used to be years
Business
ago,
license.
a business license. Now it's just an occupational tax that you're legally and constitutionally allowed to levy. What you're actually talking about doing more is a regulatory fee and regulatory oversight. So those are two different animals.
All right.
And so you don't want to merge the two because then because you don't have the authority to do that. So you want to keep them separate, and you would levy a regulatory fee and then a review process for that.
Thank you.
So next steps, have y'all,
I've not sat down with any staff member about this, by the way. I've not sat down with a staff
that's
member
what, I
about
was
this.
just wondering if the next step would be for the legal team to take a look at these ordinances
And we can do that.
and see what concerns you may have. Y'all good with that? All right. Next item up is discussion initiated by Councilman Horsley to review the extensive amount of probable code violations in the northeastern corridor of the city. Councilman Horsley has submitted images of code enforcement issues to the city manager and the police department for follow-up. Councilman Horsley's intention is to continue his personal drive arounds monthly and have the issues followed up on by staff. Councilman Horsley?
Yes, sir. I intentionally realize there's a lot of code enforcement issues in the northeastern corridor of Hapeville. Try to routinely do a ride around, if not by myself, with other individuals that live in the sub-area of Hapeville known as Moreland Park. So I drive North Avenue, Forest Hills, Commerce Way, although that's mostly industrial, Mount Zion, Dogwood, and try to do that at least on a monthly basis. And I know we have transition in staff on the PD from moving from code to outside of code enforcement, and they're going through the police academy, and happy about that. And I'm trying to just do my extra assistance and helping. I believe it's about 540 homes in that sub area. And typically I'm usually taking around 100 to 130 photos. So it's mostly, I would say, minor things like foot tall grass or mildew that needs to be removed. But then there's other cases where it might be something necessarily where we don't have something built in by way of business process. So yay, we're happy that a house is getting renovated, but then it's being renovated over an 8-month period, and the dumpster is sitting outside for 5 months full. It becomes unsightly, it becomes blightful. It might not necessarily be a broken window per se, but it's a 2-ton box of broken sheetrock, and it just seems like it sometimes might sit there and not be focused upon. Just I'd like to continue to do my individual ride-arounds. Wonder if a checklist can be provided in which I could probably offer a more efficient list of what I see is wrong. But it's just sort of one of the things I committed to when I was running, and I'm sort of trying dedicatedly to at least tackle code enforcement issues, at least in a sub-area of town.
Council, I guess, really nothing for us to say, unless anybody has a problem.
I would like to see us look into some of the tracking software for code violations where,
Click and fix.
See quick fix?
and, right, because that would give us a way to track how many times a complaint has actually been made and whether,
Like
or,
we probably got tracking available because
is it digital and accessible to citizens?
Sure.
Absolutely. Through our records management system, we can identify a property or a complaint and put it on spreadsheets, and that's no problem.
No, I didn't mean that. I'm aware that exists. I mean, for instance, 189 Arnold Street, my neighbor down the street, their grass is a foot tall. If I make a complaint, it's accessible to citizens to see. And I'm not saying this is to give citizens control, but I think this is something that can be sort of a tool for oversight to see how well we're managing complaints when it comes to code enforcement. This property has been cited this many times, this many complaints have been made against this property. So then we can rule out the argument that certain neighborhoods are better maintained or more well enforced than others.
I think See Quick Fix was budgeted for, but cut because of the needed monies for the dispatch. It was.
It was probably prior budget.
Yeah. I just think it was budgeted but never implemented.
Yeah, I think a status dashboard or something like that, or give continued updates would be beneficial. So they're saying people you see multiple complaints. At least if it's accessible for the general public, they'll know that it's on the radar, something is being done, that is just not sitting there.
If I could offer just one thing, I'm a fan of See Quick Fix. I think it's a great program because we would get the pictures, we'd be able to respond to the specifics. But I think with what I'm hearing, if I'm understanding correctly, we do have a mechanism right now, and it's crimereports.com. So Crime Reports actually picks up every complaint that we get, and it populates on a map. So you can go into Crime Reports, put it on a map, and take everything else out of it, and you will see just code violation, or just traffic, or whatever it is you're looking for. So it is there for that, but it may not be everything that you're looking for, perhaps. But it should be literally every complaint that we receive.
But isn't it by block? It doesn't give you the specific address?
Well, that actually, it'll give you the specific address. And the only time you'll see a block is if there's a bunch of them in one place, so you have to go in there, and it'll do a drop down, and it'll give you the addresses within. So Yeah, I would just check it out, see if it is what you're looking for, if it's what you're talking about, if not. Again, I'm a fan of C Quick Fix, I think it's a great product, really.
The second thing that I've thought about a couple of times, just because I've seen it happen, is utilizing H-Cops for code enforcement. I know that you have one officer doing code enforcement regularly now.
Well, we honestly, we never wanted to put the H-Cops into a position where they're enforcing or they're that, the whole H-Cops program initially was intended to be more of ambassadors to the city, not, enforcers in that way. In fact, a lot of the H-Cops have expressed concern because we actually used the H-Cops on when we were in times of need of the vehicle for some of our code enforcement.
So maybe that's what I saw.
That's probably.
Because H-Cops rolled by and then 5 people got citations. A few minutes later.
Which goes to their point, and honestly, they didn't like that as much, so we tried to stop doing that.
Well, anybody, I mean, we're all code enforcement officers. If you see something, shoot the chief an email, call the city manager, send us an email. We have to work together on these kinds of issues.
I just know that what we probably, I know I hear it, is that this neighborhood looks this way because code is not enforced, which it could be just the people who are living there. Some people, if my neighbor cuts my grass, I know my neighbor cuts their grass, I'm gonna make sure mine is cut. But if I see that nobody else on the block's cutting the grass, it doesn't mean that, it's broken windows. If one person do it, it multiplies. So I'm just thinking of ways to remedy that, where if there is a problem, I'm not saying that there is, I'm saying if there is, then we can track it and fix it. And if there's not, we can find other solutions to clean up certain areas of town.
Quick question, not to put you on the spot, Chief. Where are we in the status as far as hiring for code enforcement?
It's a great question, Councilman. Actually, we have one person that we're looking at right now. If all goes well, she's in her background phase, she should be starting next week.
Awesome.
She's very close. And we do have other applicants, but right now, they're not as close. So we should have at least one next week, plus Lieutenant Hughes, who's over the operation. He's enforcing as well.
Awesome, thank you.
All right? Anything else on that? All right. City manager report. Tim?
Couple things. We are planning our town hall, our traffic town hall, for Monday, the 24th at 7 o'clock at Fort Smith's home. At the last meeting, we talked about police radios and giving council updated information on bank financing. We did go out. We are still waiting for our primary bank to give some rates. So at the next meeting, I expect that we'll have information for council to vote on. Let's see. And then this is, we are in preparation for our 2018 audit. We expect that to start in November. So our finance team is working diligently right now to get our information together. And then this is a huge weekend for us. Everybody come out and enjoy Happy Days on Friday, local motion on the 22nd. We've got criterium races that are sponsored by Airport District ATL. So this is going to be a huge weekend for us. Everybody come out and enjoy it, get away and enjoy it.
Good to meet
We did a high school band from like 30 years ago that's playing.
you. Michael Ramon's group called Mantra. Yeah, they're playing Friday night. Class of '68's having their reunion at the Solis. Saturday night. So it'll be a big hopping, happening weekend at Hayville. All right, council comments. I'll start down here in this time.
Thanks again for hearing me out, Chief, as it relates to code enforcement issues. I know it's a thing that is often a sensitive issue to talk about, but I mean, I think the onus falls on everybody to do their part. So if I can help do my part, I just don't want it to come across as micromanagement. I'd rather it come across as I have a heartfelt need to fix specifically that corridor. So, thanks.
Thank you. Councilman Adams?
Thank you everyone for coming out, and thanks for the staff as well for all you do. Greatly appreciate you. And looking forward to having fun at Happy Days / Locomotion this weekend. I think it's gonna be a good shindig that we have out there, so I'm looking forward to it.
Alderman Rath.
That's the only comment really I would be an inquiry of other council members if there is any desire after hearing the applicant later in the meeting tonight, if there is any desire to revisit item 5.3, and if so, perhaps after some thought in the next several days, you could maybe get back in touch with Tim or Lynn and ask that that be put back on the agenda. I'm just sort of repeating some comments that were made about that denial. And there was some information that we did not have at the time of the vote that we do have now, and the individual has a building now that more or less stuck with. So I would just ask that the possibility that be revisited in the near future.
Councilman Alexander.
That was actually my same comment, just for everyone who made a comment. I appreciate your sentiments. I don't sit up here with the goal to make people angry. I look at the information that's given to me and I try to make a decision based on if I was this person, what would I do? I do think it's important, just like, what was your name again?
Charlotte Adams.
Ms. Adams was given an opportunity to speak. We didn't ask Mr. Wynn to speak. I wasn't even aware that he was here. And had he been given an opportunity to speak, I probably would have made a different decision.
Well, I opened the floor up for comments, so
But
But it could have been a language barrier
Yeah.
issue as well with him, as well as his representative.
in the real, I'm sorry, Chloe, while this is on my mind, in the future when we do public hearings, can you give us a little checklist? Applicant, public comment, staff, council, and then we can check them off so we can make sure there's not an oversight. Because I opened the floor for comments, I opened the floor for all comments, so nobody was excluded. But I agree that I think there may have been a line.
There's been some inconsistency. I think some of our public hearings, we've heard from the applicant first and then moved on.
So it could be a
But I do
procedural
listen.
flaw.
I was gonna say, for me personally, maybe you guys too, I do listen to what people say. And that also informed the decision that I made because there have been conditional permits that were approved and people were very unhappy about them. And I didn't make the decision, but I hear about it. And so I do think if we can revisit it, that I would be fine.
So, since I was in the majority that did not, quick question, since I was in the majority that denied, can we open that back up for reconsideration at this meeting?
Yes.
The attorney,
Yes.
and he says yes, okay?
By vote, you can suspend the rules and sort of circumvent the rules of the meeting.
Okay.
By majority vote.
I would recommend, if you want to do that now, that you make a motion to amend the agenda to reconsider that item.
I'll make a motion
Procedurally.
to make a motion to reopen the agenda to amend that particular item for reconsideration.
Motion to reconsider.
Consider condition.
5.3.
5.3. All right, motion, all right, there's a motion to reconsider item number 5.3 under public hearings. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second, all right, discussion. All,
This is over. Isn't here.
I'm sure you guys email.
Or in a phone number.
all right, so we have a motion on the floor to amend the agenda. So any discussion on that?
For me, I just really think that, just like Councilman Alexander said and Councilman Rass, there's a lot of information that we didn't get until after the vote was made because he didn't get up and make comment in support of his building. Also, we'd like to impress upon that we do something to aesthetically enhance that out of that building, or that front way as well, to make it more pleasing.
May I ask a question though? Is that possible by way of a zoning vote? Asking a change of aesthetic of the building? And asking, I mean, I know landscaping, yes. Landscaping, yes.
Well, landscaping for me
Andy's
is
shaking
fine.
his head in the affirmative back there, so. This is Andy Welch, he's the senior counsel for the firm.
Mayor and Council, what you can do tonight is that you can, Mayor and Council, you can you can obviously reconsider during any session. So as a matter of Robert's Rules of Order, you can reconsider any previous motions made. So you're still in session, you can do that tonight. You could reconsider it to the extent of, you could postpone the motion for a final decision at your next meeting, thereby giving some time for staff to consider some of the comments that you're making, some of the comments that staff has made, and then it can come back to you for a vote at that next meeting. So you don't have to vote tonight, you just have to hold the public hearing as scheduled. So once that's been held and that has been closed, then the vote needs to happen within a reasonable time thereafter. It could be this night, or it could be at your next meeting. But that would afford some opportunity for staff to look at what conditions might be added. Or you could take the action tonight, and you can place certain reasonable conditions on the zoning of a property.
Okay, the question would be, if we postpone the hearing, it would be a public hearing, it would be a zoning, so we would have to meet the zoning restriction, the laws for that?
No, your public hearing was tonight, correct?
Right.
And the vote was taken tonight.
Right,
You're reconsidering the vote,
okay.
not the public hearing.
Okay.
So what you're doing is you're reconsidering your decision.
Okay.
The public hearing has been closed. That is over. If you want to reopen the public hearing, then that would require notification and another date, time set per state law in your own zoning codes, which would be in 15 to 45 day periods. My recommendation to you is that you don't reopen the public hearing,
Right.
but that you might either reconsider your vote tonight or postpone the decision until the next meeting so as to allow for staff to formulate some reasonable conditions that are associated with this, the use and zoning of the property.
I recommend reconsidering the vote tonight.
I think that's the cleanest way to do it.
Plus, the building looks 1,000 times better than it used to.
Much better than it
Yeah.
has been.
And I don't know, there was I didn't know he bought the building either.
I didn't either.
But there was a sinkhole in the
Mhm.
building. Who knows how much he paid to repair that, so.
Okay.
So I move to approve.
We have a motion to amend the agenda yet.
Oh, 20 seconds. Oh, okay.
You did, we have voted on it yet.
Oh, sorry.
So all in favor of the motion to amend the agenda?
My error.
Right hand, if you're voting for amending the agenda. All in favor? All opposed? Okay, now.
No, I didn't raise my hand. I'm in favor.
Okay. I like to,
Retrospective.
let me get my verbiage here.
Son texted me, I'm sorry.
I'd like to move that we approve the conditional use for 685 North Central Avenue for dry cleaners.
Okay. Mr. Nguyen's application.
Mr. Duck Wynn's
Conditional
application.
use permit. Okay, motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
Second discussion?
I'd like to see some landscaping done on the property in particular. It might involve the removal of some street, there's some, North Central sidewalk, and then the parking lot. Aesthetically, I think it would be a little bit more pleasing to the flow and function of the district if we had some landscaping. So probably remove half of the parking spot up front, or full one. I'm just talking about like making like beds closer to the street.
Could he just install a lantern?
Could I recommend some language that just says that staff will work with the applicant to make some improvements? And then you can get your specific concerns to staff?
Yes, sir.
Give them the latitude. Will you amend your motion to reflect that, Mark?
I made my motion to reflect that staff will work with the applicant to make the front parking lot of the building more aesthetically pleasing.
Right. You meant, who seconded? You meant your
With
second?
landscape.
With landscaping.
So you amend your second too?
I've been my second.
Okay. All right, discussion? Being none, all in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign, and the motion carries. We're still in the council comments, and I will use what just happened as an example of how Hayville operates and how proud I am when we have a situation and we we get the facts, and we may not have heard all the facts on the front end, but we hear them, and we swallow our pride and we do what's right. So I think we did right for the applicant tonight. I appreciate y'all doing that.
Did hear a lot of hesitancy as it relates to conditional use, though, and I believe the manager, or Monday, Alan, it was Alan, that made the comment about sort of that involved a fundamental shift in our policy as it relates to zoning. So that discussion can be had maybe in individual meetings with council members. I think there's still a lot of hesitation as it relates.
I think that when we can get in a proactive mode of operation instead of a reactive mode of operation, these are the kinds of things that staff can talk about. And I think things are finally starting to stabilize. Would you agree, Tim? I would. We've got some more time to be proactive about things.
I think work sessions are coming along.
Yes, I agree.
True work sessions.
True work sessions. As part of the changes that we talked about in our meetings, the mid-month work session used to be designed to create what was going to be on the next month's agenda. Well, they've become just a de facto second meeting where we're bringing all this stuff up, and it's not really a work session anymore, it's a second council meeting. So we're going to try to migrate back to the mid-month being a true work session where things like this can be brought up and staff can be given direction, and then a timeline, and then we come back and review the things in future meetings. That will streamline this whole operation. So I appreciate, again, I appreciate y'all reconsidering. I think it's the right thing to do. A comment was made earlier about my inability to engage in discussions on items. I was elected by the citizens of Hayden to be the mayor of this city, not to be the gavel holder. So I'm going to be the mayor. And I will say what my comments are. I don't vote unless there's a tie. And as long as I'm sitting up here, I will engage in conversations about items that affect the city, because that's what I was elected to do. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. At this time, I'm going to take a motion that we go into executive session for real estate and legal.
And personnel.
And personnel. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor of the motion, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. I'll entertain a motion, we recess.
So